Hey guys, so I'm back with another video, and this is going to be part 4 of our real-time chat application using Blazor WebAssembly and SignalR. So I have already uploaded 3 parts on YouTube, and I'm going to paste the link of those 3 in the description box. So please check out first 3 parts before continuing on this fourth part. So let's continue. So far we have done this. We have login page, we have register page, and when we log in, it redirects us to the main chat page. So here, now first thing we are going to modify a little bit what we have started. So now we are going to have two separate sections, one on the left side, one on the right side. So on the right side we are going to have a list of all the users our system has, and on the left side we will have the list of the users, or we could say the chats with the users that other user or I have sent or received message to or from, right? So we are going to have three part on this screen, and then we'll try to implement the chat functionality. So let's get started. First thing, I'm on the chat.razor page. So on this page we have this 3 and 9, but we are going to change it. First thing, let's change it to container fluid so that it takes the full screen. And what happened? Container fluid, and we have saved it. We are here. Let's check. And this is container, still container. Okay, maybe we need to restart, but before that let's get our things working. So first thing, in this row 3 for users list, next we'll have another 3 columns for uh, these are chat messages, or we can say the message detail. We need to change this. Okay, so user list, we are going to have all the users in the system, right? Whatever all users are registered with our app. So users list, all users. In this, let's for now let's have h3. We would call these users. Okay, and then same thing, we will copy paste it, users list. Let's stop it and rename this users list, copy to, let's say, chats. And this chat message, let rename it chat, let's call it detail. Chat details. So users list, the right section, chats, or let's call it chats list. The name is up to you. Chats list and then chat detail. Fine. So users list is users, chats list we will have the same h3. On this chat list we will call these chats, and instead of user detail, okay, we'll modify this in a bit. Then chat details, we have this message already. Please select a user from the connected users list to start a conversation. Okay, fine. And now we'll go to chat page, users list, fine. And instead of chat message, now this is chat details. And the third one is users list, the first one is chats list. So save all, and run it. It's here, chats, users, and why it came this side? Because 3, 3, and it will be 6. Save. Chats, and these could be smaller. So let's have these 2, 2, and 8. So call SM2, call SM8, call SM2, and when we are on the smaller screen, then we will have call 3, call 3, and call 6. Fine. Save. So chats, users, and this is the actual message window, the main detail window. Fine. So now this users list, we are going to display all the users here, all the users who are connected to our system. It does not matter if those users are online or not. So for these users, let's create a new controller, and let's create a new controller here, public class uh, users controller base, and this will be protected controller because from login or register we are generating the token. So in order to connect to users controller, the user must be signed in our system, so it must be authorized. API controller, and then proud, and it will be API slash controller. Same. In this, let's inject our chat context, and in here let's have a endpoint for our user DTO, enumerable of user DTO, and we can name it whatever we want. We are not using it in our route, so it will be http get. So we will return await chat context users as no tracking because we don't want to do some modification on these users, and then we will use as no tracking select new user DTO, and this user DTO we can have ID and name, which we will get from this user, and for name we will use display name, right? Oh, name is the display name. To list async, to list async, it will come from Microsoft. Okay, await, no, I will send this. Fine, because this is single line, we can use the expression body. So now we have this users controller which returns list of all the users. Let's move it to its own file, and we have this users controller now. Okay, so when user comes to this page, we need to skip this current user, right? If I am making this call, there is no point of having me in this list. So we have two ways: either we can filter out this on this query level, or we can simply filter out in when we will receive complete data, then we will filter out uh, the current user on the UI. So let's use it here only. So where u.id is not equals to the current user's id, because this controller is authorized, that means there should be, the user should already be there, and we can get the user by direct user dot, we have claims dot, we can get the user id from these claims, right? And these claims, we are setting these in register and login, generate jwt user. So name identifier is the user id. So let's go back. For all these authorized controllers, we could have one base controller. Let's call it public abstract class base controller. We will add authorize on this, and we will have a property here for user id. User id is int, right? User id is int, yes. So we will have this underscore user id, main user id, and setting is not needed. Forget, forget, we will check. Let's make it complete. Forget, first we will check if this user id is greater than 0. If so, we will return it. If not, or let's say if it's equals 0, then we will get the user from claims. So we can have underscore user id equals, we have user, we will have access to this from controller base. So user dot claims dot first, and we can pass a func. So we will say c dot type is equals claim types dot name identifier dot value. So this will give us the string version. We need to have it in integer format, so we can simply do this. We can convert it to integer. Now we set it. So for the first time it will come here, it will check, this will be 0, class level property, class level variable, it will be 0, it will come here, it will set user id and then return it. So if within the same request, if we access this user id again, we will have it. For that we will skip this and we will directly return this user id. So this base controller, now we don't need this authorized controller on this level because we have it in this base controller. So let's move it to its separate class and fine. Okay. So we have user id. It is coming from base controller. User id, it is coming from base controller, so we will always have this user id if user comes this far. And so this users list, it will be all the users skipping the current user. Now on chat page, when this page is initializing and we have all this, at this time we need to have list of all the users. So we can have list of all the users here, or we can manage it in its own component. Do we need something which is required on this level? Okay, if needed we can uh, change the logic, but for now let's have it in the user level. So override on initialized async, and it will be async. For http calls, if we go to index, did we have something? No, we are using http client directly, right? So this http client, okay. So on this page also we will inject http client, and we have this list of users default. So now it is not a parameter because we are having it on this page only. So we could have a loader here, so that will indicate current loading state. So loading, default value false. Here we will have try finally, and first thing we will set loading to true, and then in finally we will have loading to false. And for now let's skip this exception, we will handle it later. Next thing is we need users list from http client dot, so post as JSON async, we can have JSON converter. Okay, fine. So http client dot get from JSON async, we could have this. So get from JSON async, we need to give the type, and type here will be enumerable of user DTO. And in this user DTO, first thing is the URL, which is API users in this case, and then second parameter cancellation token JSON serializer options. We need this. If you remember, we had created our custom JSON converter with R setting. So for this we need our JSON serializer options, right? This one, because we are using this. So we have this. Now this users list, it will be enumerable of users DTO, it could be nullable in this case. So we will check if this users list is not null. This users list is not null, then we will set our main users list to this users list. Okay. Now we will have users whenever this screen is loading. On user selected, users list. Fine, it should work now. Let's try it. It should list down all the users, skipping the current user. and there is some error. Let's see what is it. The error is BlazingChat client users list has a property matching the name users. Okay, because we removed this users property and we are still using this here, so we can remove this. And then second thing, users. Okay, let's try to restart it. And now we don't need this public, it could be private. Continue. It's loading. Still error. Let's see what is it now. Console. Server responded with 401. Yes, because we did not pass the token with this request, right? That's why it returned uh, the 401. So in order to do that, let's create a helper method for this HTTP client, or maybe let's create an extension method to attach the okay, we will the correct approach would be creating a tunnel for all HTTP calls. We can have a centralized service, so all the HTTP calls will flow through that HTTP client service, and in that HTTP client service we will inject the token with all the requests, right? But for now, let's add it here only. So for HTTP client dot default request headers dot uh, this HTTP client is it is using this, so let's say client dot default request headers dot authorization. Do we have directly default request dot authorization? So it is get set authorization header values. So let's try how can we do this. Let's go to authorization header value, and this authorization header value, it has a schema, parameter, source, toString, parse. Does it have implicit conversion from string? Oh, so we need to add this scheme and parameter, new authentication header value. Let's add it to using authentication header value. And it needs two parameters. So first is scheme, so that is bearer, and second is token, which we have in our authentication state dot so authentication state it on parent, so we could get it like this. So we have this authentication state now, authentication state dot token. This is our JWT. So we set this authorization header, then we will call this HTTP client, right? We could have this as an extension method, or we could have a centralized HTTP client service which will add this authorization header to all the HTTP clients if we have token. Okay, now let's try it. Okay, it is coming. And we got list of users, but it showed Abhay Prince 2 times. Did we add Abhay Prince 2 times? Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, we were using this loading, but we didn't add it. So for now, let's check if is loading is true. Then in li with this class we will have a loading indicator, and that we can have from our login button. So it would be like this. Okay, loading this, and if that's not the case, then we'll use else. Okay, for users, in order to check, let's add their IDs in front of the user. Okay, save it, see it. Yeah, these are two different users. I might have said the same name. Refresh, it should show the loading indicator, and it what's the issue? API users 401. Why 401? And then we got the result. Continue. 401. So is it making two requests? Let's try. Yes, it's making two requests. First one is 401, then second one is actual request. And why so? Let's try to figure out. And the first request, when it tried that, did it pass the token? Headers, request URL, response, request headers, authorization is bearer with values nothing. Okay, so we should investigate it. Maybe we'll debug it later, but for now we can have a check here. If we have the token, then only do all this. Okay, so we have token, then only we are going to run this code, initialize component and getting the list of users. Let's see it in action. Loading users, and yes, we have users list now. Fine, cool. Now we have users list. Next thing is, we still have clicked. What should be the next thing? Next thing should be if any new user is connecting to our system, that user should be added to this list on runtime, right? So for this, what we can have a parameter here which will say prop user dtu. It will be a new user. It will be a parameter. Default value will be default, or we could say we could have it nullable. Then if we got this new user, then we will add this. Now we have a challenge. We can have a reference to uh, this component using ref, but that is not a good approach. That can work in our case. What we can have a ref here. We will call it users list component, and then we can have it here users list component, and then we can access this users list component. We can access all the properties, authentication state, new user, on user selected, authentications, everything. We can, whatever we have this on this component users list, we can access it from here. So one approach could be we can have a method here, public method, public void, we could say add new user, and it will have this parameter, and then we can simply add this new user to our users collection on this page. Because it is enumerable, so we need to change it to maybe I collection. In this case it should be a new list or hash set. We can add this new user like this, and from the parent users list component, when we have a new user, so on user dtu user connected users list, we could have this users list component. What was the name of this? User list component dot add new user, and then we can have this. We need to change it. It should be user, not username. So one approach is this, but I'm not a very big fan of this approach. So we are going to remove this, or maybe I can have it for your reference like this. What we can do in this case, we need to uplift this collection, this list of users in this case. Let's do this. Cut it from here, or will this be a good approach? When a new user is coming, it should be on this page only. Okay, let's do this. So if we uplift this, then this piece of code should also move to the parent. Okay, in that case we can have simultaneous calls, concurrent calls. Okay, it will have its own advantage. Okay, let's uplift it. Copy, go to chat page. Okay, I'm going to remove this. No, just remove it. Remove this. Let's have this as a property here. Users, list of users. No, we already have this one, this users. We already have it, and on initialized, let's get this HTTP client here. So instead of, we don't have HTTP client on this. Okay, fine. We'll inject this HTTP client, and in fact, let's inject it, and using system net headers client, let's have a helper method here, private HTTP client get client. And I'm doing this because I need to do this thing, right? And then we will return this client. So here, when we are in this else part, configure connection, and we will say users list task, and it will be get client dot this same call, this call. So we are not awaiting it here, right? We will first start it, do this, we initiated this call, and now we'll get the response. So we can say users, we will have await users list task. Now we will have these users here, and it is saying it could be null, so we could check where users list. If users list is not null, then we will say users equals to this users list. Fine. Get client, everything is fine. Now we will again use the, we don't need this now. For this loading, we could have this from the parent only. Now we don't need this, we don't need this. Instead of this, we could have this loading as a users loading property, and it will be a parameter. And next thing, it will again have a list of user detail for users. We don't need this, remove this, and we don't need this. On initialized async, we can remove this as well. Let's have it as default, and this loading should be changed with this loading. Users, everything looks fine. We don't need this cascading parameter here now. Okay, now we'll pass this loading state and this users list from its parent, which is chat. So here we will have private boolean where parameter underscore loading users, which will be false by default. Loading user, we will set it here to true, and then we will set it to false here. We should have it in try catch block so that it should go to we could reset it if something went wrong, but for now let's keep it this only, keep it like this. Now this users list, it needs a loading state, which in our case is loading users. Then it needs a user list. Okay, this needs to be parameter. It needs a users collection, so it should be this users list. Fine. We had to do this because we want to add any new user which is connecting to our system. We need to add that user to this users list. So in this case, what we are going to do first, let's see if it is working. Loading. Looks like it's trying to get the users list. Is it stuck? Let me refresh it. Network. We got this postman user. The request was only one, and we have these three. It is not working because on this chat page we are modifying the users when we are getting the connected user. Okay, for now let's comment this. For now let's save it, refresh this page, and we should be good now. Yes, we have these users. We have these users list 1 2 3, and for this chats also we are using the same users list. That's why it is showing this. So now let's change it with this users list. For this, let's say chats list user dto. For now, let's say we are not passing anything. Refresh. We have users list and we don't have anything for these chats. Fine. So now the next thing we need, whenever any new user is connecting to our system, it should be shown, it should be appended to this list. Let's do this. For that, first thing we need to have, so this user connected, we need to change this. We will change this, but first thing, let's say hub connection, or yeah, it should be user connected only. All right, that online is different if the user is online, so user state is going to be changed. For this we should have this only, user connected users dot add, and this user connected is getting triggered if we go to our hub. We are broadcasting it when user is connecting to our system. So for this, let's comment it for now, and user should be added to that list when new user is registering to our system, right? So user is registering to our system in account controller with this register method. So from here we need to notify the user, so that user connected event. So we can do this using, we need to inject I have context for this, and because we are using this one t hub, it can have t hub and t. where T hub is actually in our case chat hub, blazing chat hub, blazing chat hub, and the T is the type of our client. In that case, that is blazing chat hub client, right? Yes. So it is hub context. Let's create a property out here, a private read-only variable, this hub context. And when user successfully registered to our system, here we are setting it, we are generating a token, and then we will broadcast this message to all clients dot user connected, and we need to pass a user DTU, and we can get user DTU from like this, right? Like this. Away. This will broadcast this message to all the connected users, that some user has connected to our system. Now, for this user connected, we will come here. This is going to be triggered. We are getting this new user. So let's call it new user. And this new user, we are adding it to this users list, and then state is going to be changed, and eventually this users list is going to be updated. That will update this list. Let's see it in action. Let me stop it, save all files and run it. Loading users. Why does it take time? There is something which is stuck sometime. Okay, we'll debug it later again. So now let's check what if we connect a new user to the system. In that case, if we come here, we will have this WS, which is WebSocket call. We have our blazing chat messages, and let's see all the received message. Clear it, and we'll see when the new user. We have 3 users right now, and from another instant, let's go to register, refresh this page, and we are on register, and let's call it new user, password, register, close. We have this list, we have this user, and we received one message, that is user connected, arguments this user ID and this name. And if you see this list, there were 3 users. Now we can see this new user which just got connected to the system, and we are showing that user here. And this page, this where we registered that new user, at that page we are seeing all other users, not this current user, which is this new user. So this feature is working. So for this video, I think that's it for this video. In next video, we will work on chats list, or maybe before that we'll work on showing the online status. So if which user is online, we'll try to indicate in that list. Then we'll continue with the left chat section, and then we'll continue on this main page, sending and receiving the messages. So if you like my content, please like this video, share it with your friends and colleagues, subscribe my channel, and I'll be right back with next video.